Classroom of the Elite is one of those shows that has a few question marks around itself for various reasons. In spite of that, there is a third season airing right now. I'll be talking about the aspects of the show that have altogether produced a very mixed reception from viewers. This season got delayed twice, initially due to air last summer, then moved to autumn just gone, and is now airing this winter. Classroom of the Elite is a light novel based anime. The first 2 seasons covered the first 9 volumes, leaving the third season to most probably go over the remaining first year story in 13 episodes. So like the previous seasons, a lot of the stuff from the source material has to be left out. And yes, I read all of the light novel last summer. I could honestly make a series of videos listing the differences, but that can honestly be for another video because there are so many. Though I will be bringing up a few in this video for the sake of context. 2 episodes of the third season are already out at the time of recording this video, so definitely check it out if you haven't already. The story continues as Kiyotaka Ayanokoji is navigating his way through school life in the unusual cutthroat system of Advanced Nurturing High. In this third semester, there are more students brought into the spotlight in new exams that could see people get expelled if they fall below the mark. Now, if you're into this show, it's probably because of 2 things. The first is the concept of incorporating society into a school, essentially better preparing the students for adult life compared to the average school. The school has a class point system, which is heavily determined by a class's general behaviour in a sectioned off metropolitan area in Tokyo and how they perform in written tests and special exams that don't always take place in the school itself. On top of that, students get a set amount of money in the form of private points every month, which is proportionate to the class points tally of their own class. Then certain special exams can award students private points for good performances as well. And you can buy almost anything with private points. I'm pretty sure based on the private points incentives, most people who have already been through the state school system wouldn't have minded going to Advanced Nurturing High. Then if it's not that, it's probably the protagonist, Kiyotaka Ayanokoji, the seemingly quirky boy who is essentially a mastermind super soldier in the making that wants to keep his intelligence, wit and physical prowess hidden so that he can enjoy a normal school life. Despite the school setting, this has the model of a power fantasy. Don't let anybody tell you different. You've got 4 classes in each year competing in these special exams to be the top class, that being class A, to get a guaranteed acceptance to their next job or educational institution. Each class has a few exceptional students, and the main character seemingly is the best out of all of them, but chooses to appear as the average Joe, getting a 50 on all of his entrance exams, who for various reasons manipulates his own class, class D, from the shadows in attempt to drag them from the bottom rank all the way to the top. My take on Ayanokoji after watching the first season was, okay, he's really smart, he's probably really strong, but he's kind of a dick. And it's heavily hinted that he's developed a sociopathic mentality because of a special secret institution unknown to the general public that he grew up in. Then there's the little reveal that he entered this school unbeknownst to his father and that he wants his son back in that place called the White Room. And while there are problems with how he's portrayed in the show, I'm also a sucker for first person perspective narration. There are enough Ayanokoji inner monologues littered in the show on top of the interesting premise for me to believe that I might like the light novel. And I'm pretty sure that those who agree have more or less a similar opinion for the show as a whole. The plot and characters overall provide a marginally acceptable amount of quality. I'd say that the characters are the better of the 2 though most of the ensemble fall into typical archetypes in a typical anime high school, more than a few characters contain other traits to differentiate them. As for the plot, it's kinda polarizing. There are moments of well thought out and realistic developments, and there are some moments that have you thinking that most of the cast have dropped a few IQ points for the sake of the plot. It doesn't help that the special exams that these students do are treated as an afterthought most of the time. But at the same time, with the studio cramming a lot of light novel volumes into 12 and 13 episode seasons, the show gives off the impression that the corresponding moments of the story are all better done in the light novel, where there is certainly more context around these moments and the issue of pacing is virtually non-existent compared to the anime. And spoilers, the light novel is better. Apart from maybe 3 episodes and moments in others, the animation is just okay. Of course, if you're watching only Anime of the Year contenders, you'll say this is the most bare to the bones animation. And the really bad shots are more prevalent in the first season. Anyone who isn't talking are usually as stiff as a rock until it's their time to talk, then when their cue comes they're back to life. Even then, most of the time it's only a jerk or a slight gesture followed by their mouths moving. Susan, your brother is trying to attack your classmate. Can I see some sort of a reaction, please? Oh, there it is. I saw a comment on the season 3 trailer that dubbed the show Classroom of the Low Budget, and I kinda chuckled at that because that's exactly what this is. Granted, the 3rd season looks better so far, however it feels more like a quality of life improvement, like a mandatory annual pay rise. Yeah, we're kinda grateful for it, but in the grand scheme of things, the value of that improvement is kinda minuscule and doesn't add for a net positive. Overall, it is very hard to call it a good anime adaptation. It definitely isn't a faithful one. There are just too many creative liberties that the anime has taken for the light novel readers to be unanimously happy about. And again, in fairness to Lurch Studios, this anime is clearly a watered down light novel commercial, not to impress the light novel fans. Some of the changes are warranted, but others not so much. Like the first year Class A teacher being the only teacher we see in the beginning of the 3rd season in the mixed grade special exam in the first 2 episodes of the 3rd season, besides Chabashira in the very beginning. You're telling me that the studio couldn't be bothered to generate other character models to appear for what, 5 seconds? That's just lazy. But I will say, changing the number of students in a class from 40 to 25 is fine. In Ayano Koji's class, only about 15 students have any dialogue and the rest are only known by name and description in the light novel. Lurch Studios were aware that they got a good story on their hands. All they needed was to downsize and package it so that it's alluring enough for potential readers like myself to look into it. Then, if anime onlys like the show, it's a bonus. And I will say that despite the lack of outstanding visual quality, it's still impressive that an anime like this has a following that's still into the show going into the 3rd season, even if the following isn't hardcore compared to other anime fan bases. As much as there is a lot to be intrigued about in the story, there is also a lot to either question and or even laugh at. Like, why does Ruin wear a black shirt without a tie and Ishizaki wear a normal t-shirt, whilst literally everybody else wears a white shirt and a blue tie for school? So you're telling me that a school that heavily penalizes bad behavior in the complex are allowing those two to get away with such an obvious detail about appearances in school with no repercussions? But then in the beginning of the 3rd season, Ishizaki is seen wearing a white shirt like everybody else. Is this the anime trying to tell us he's going under some character development after getting some due discipline from Ayano Koji? And why does this 15-year-old look like a 30-year-old bouncer? For a luxurious cruise in the summer, one item of clothing he decides to pack in his suitcase is a flipping waistcoat. I want to say this is not normal behavior befitting a 15-year-old, and yeah, the immersion is kind of broken when he's on screen, but I guess students labelled exceptional tend to have that effect on viewers. I will say he will be harder to forget because of his appearance, and I don't think it will ever not be slightly funny whenever I think about this. Like I said before, this anime has always been in a weird spot for criticism, and I'm sure that not much will change from this season. You're gonna get light novel readers that are peeved off with the watered down version of the source material, some that are just satisfied that the adaptation is continuing, some anime onlys that love what this show brings, and some that straight up think this show is laughable. And if I'm being totally honest, none of those opinionated factions can be considered totally unfair. If you just want to see a great story in its lesser anime format, I'd highly recommend it. Especially if you don't mind or even like being teased about certain developments as the show continues. I could have talked about this show a lot more than I have done in this video, but then I wouldn't have gotten this video out whenever I ended up doing so. I'll probably do another video on this show once the season is done, but this is where I'll be wrapping it up for now. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. Helps these videos get seen. If not, leave your thoughts on the show or the video in the comment section below. See ya.